Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. SIUK Nigeria is live with University of Portsmouth. Over to you, K3.
Thanks, Deepika. Good morning, good afternoon. Well, it's actually the same time, isn't it? So good morning, everybody. Yes, welcome to our presentation today, delivered by the University of Portsmouth, and specifically from the School of the Environment, Geography and Geosciences. And that section about the remote sensing will be delivered by Dr. Malcolm Whitworth, who you can see on your screen there. So he will be talking a little bit more about that subject area, which I'm sure is probably the reason that you've joined us today. But I thought I would just give you a quick overview about the University of Portsmouth. And it'd be really interesting actually to see in the chat box whether you've heard about the University of Portsmouth. We do get a good number of students from Nigeria, and Dr. Whitworth has travelled out many, many times to Nigeria across lots of different cities. So he's very familiar with students from Nigeria, but also where you are from. So if you do have any queries specifically, then he has been involved with some PhD projects, for example, and yeah, full of lots of knowledge anyway. So, so let me just share my screen and presentation. Right, you should see on your screen a presentation. Is that, can you see the first slide? Fantastic. So as I say, welcome to the University of Portsmouth. We have Dr. Malcolm Whitworth here. We also have Chinelo Ponoya from our Nigeria office. So she has just joined us today. Based in Lagos, so she can also field any queries that you might have about your application should you wish to come to us for one of our programs. And myself, I am Catherine, and I'm based in the Faculty of Science and Health, which is where the School of Environment, Geography and Geosciences is. So just to tell you a little bit about the city, where we are, have you heard about us? We are located about 70 miles from London. That's important because lots of applicants ask us, where is Portsmouth? We're on the south coast of England. So it does tend to have the sunnier climates. There's a nice sunny photo on your screens there. But yes, statistically, it is the sunniest part of the UK. But of course, when you compare that back to Nigeria, yes, very, very different. We're a city centre campus, so you don't have to travel in or out of the city. Where you are based, so where you study, where you live is all probably within about 10 minutes walking distance of that tower that you see in the centre of the screen. And that is our Spinnaker Tower. So you can actually go to the top of it, you get a nice view of the city. And the city has around 350, 400,000 people. So probably a lot smaller than perhaps some of the cities that you're familiar with. But it has very good transport links. So when you can travel, we're near Southampton Airport, which you can travel out to Europe. We're also a port city, so you can travel out by ferry to France and to Spain. So what we're proud of in the University of Portsmouth is that we have that TEF Gold badge that you can see on the top right of your screen. That does mean that's a UK government kind of badge that we have for our teaching and learning. That is the best standard that you can get across the UK. So you can feel rest assured if you do choose to come to the University of Portsmouth, then you would get that delivery, that quality of programme assurance. We are also a 5-star university for the QS Top Universities in 2021. We're #1 also in the UK for boosting graduate salaries, according to The Economist. So we've got some really good stats there, and students are generally happy. So again, top 30 student satisfaction for the National Student Survey. So there's lots of government regulations, lots of quality assurance, lots of good numbers there that you see on the screen that hopefully would give you confidence about the delivery of our programs. So every UK university does have a global office, an international office, which supports overseas students, and it's the same for the University of Portsmouth. And we have a very, very big team. Student advisors who will help you with immigration issues, who will give you guidance, particularly for the graduate immigration route, the new GRIR route, the old post-study work permit, if you like, which enables you to stay on in the UK for 2 years once you finish your undergrad or postgraduate studies. And this global office will also help you and pick you up from the airport when you do arrive. That is Heathrow Airport, that we do the airport pickups, and that continues through the pandemic, and we continue to do that this year as well. Again, lots of activities that happen at the moment. Many of these are virtual, but they are slowly coming back, and we can obviously field any queries that you do have about the pandemic and how our delivery is at the moment if you have questions. But the Student Union has over 150 different sports clubs and societies. Sports has started back up in the UK, so the football teams are back. So we are coming out of this pandemic, but you can see there's lots of different clubs and societies. There is a very, very active Nigerian society as well, but also ones linked to your program, so geosciences also. So I touched upon the GIR very, very briefly, the graduate immigration route, but we do have an employability, careers and employability centre at the University of Portsmouth, and they would help you with part-time work experiences. They advertise the work, but also they would help you in the interview structure, how to structure a CV. And there's lots available to you. Obviously, the pandemic may reduce this somewhat, but there is certainly a lot of work, or there was certainly a lot of work around, and you can work up to about 20 hours a week, depending on your visa. So you would check your visa. So that's just more information there about the GIR. As I say, you can access our Careers and Employability Centre for up to 5 years after graduation. So it's not just a case of coming here, studying here, and then that's it. You can call us, you can drop in at any time up to 5 years after graduation to get careers advice, to get help with advancing your career. And very briefly touching upon international fees, often a question, how much does it to study in the UK? Those are our tuition fees at the moment for 2021, and we do request a deposit of £3,500. That's for your visa letter, and then you can pay the remaining on arrival. And of course, there are scholarships. So yes, very much a group of scholarships there. We have merit scholarships, we have a global development scholarship, and we have alumni scholarships. There are also SEG scholarships, so they're the School of Environment scholarships, and I'll put the link as well in the chat box in a moment. But the School of Environment, Geography and Geosciences scholarships are actually up to 50% of your fee for an MSc postgraduate program. So there are up to 4 of those available, and if you have a 2-1 degree from Nigeria, perfect, you are eligible to apply. And as I say from the first slide, from that Spinnaker Tower, where you live and where you study is very, very close by. So within 10 minutes, you can be in your lecture theatres. And this just gives you a whole host of accommodation on your screen there. So it does range in your, according to your budget. So from 102 up to 179, but also it depends on what you want now during the pandemic, whether you want your own studio, your own bathroom, or shared living space. There's a whole range of accommodation available for you, depending on your personal preference. And a question I'm sure you will ask, and we will happy to field these, and Malcolm can give his input even more so about the October intake moving forward, how we will deliver our programs. But so far what we have done is delivered a blended learning approach. So where courses can be delivered off campus, they have been done, and you connect to your tutor and everything is done online. There are some programs which require placements or laboratory practice, and that is where you would come in for that, but the remainder of the program would be off campus. But moving forward, we're very optimistic about October intake. We're very optimistic about the way that the UK is at the moment coming out of lockdown. You can see the stats. And things are going back to normal. We have rolled out a vaccination program, which looks very positive and should complete by the end of the summer. And that really puts us in a very good position for October to have on campus. However, we are planning a mix of blended learning, so it will continue. That's our plan, but we'll wait and see how it all comes out, I think. Who knows what will happen in the next few months, but at the moment we're very optimistic. So that's pretty much the overview of the City of Portsmouth and the University of Portsmouth, and the way that we've been operating at the moment. We are continuing to work off campus. As you can see, I'm at home, and so is Dr. Whitworth. I'll hand over at this time to Dr. Whitworth, who will tell you more about the geosciences and the remote sensing subject area. And I'll have a look in the chat box if you have any questions as you're going along. All right. Thank you. Over to you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Catherine. So I'm going to share screen. Yay. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. Just I don't want to start talking. Okay, so hello everyone. So my name is Malcolm Whitworth. I'm an academic in the School of the Environment, Geography and Geosciences. I'm an engineering geologist, one of a team there. And so I'm going to give you a flavour for how we can use remote sensing and how we can use drone data and drone imagery in some work we've done. So I've got about half an hour, so it's going to be quite a rapid overview, but hopefully it'll give you a flavour for the kind of things that we do and how these can be employed. So what today's lecture really is about, so what is engineering geology? Quick slide about what we would define as being engineering geology, if you're not familiar with that. Remote sensing imagery, what is it and how we use it, particularly for what we term terrain evaluation. I'll also talk about elevation model data, which is very important for us. And then I'll come on to talking about unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or sometimes called drones. And we'll look at how we can acquire the data and what kind of data is produced. And then at the end, I believe there'll be a question and answer session where Catherine and myself can answer any queries that you may have. So engineering geology really essentially is the application of geology to the built environment. So that's an understanding of the subsurface and the surface to try to understand how that's going to behave when we do things like build railway lines or road lines or tunnels or offshore wind farms or dams. And so the engineering geologist provides the expertise as to how the ground will behave when you put those structures in place. So what we term trend evaluation is an important aspect of that. And then what we have to do is we have to evaluate the environment prior to any building work taking place. And so we use remote sensing quite widely in that approach. So the first technique we employ very often is not very technically difficult. It's quite an old technique, but we use our photographs. And we use our photographs because there's such a huge archive of it available going back to the early 1900s. So it's a really good data source for us. And essentially, they're just photos taken by a camera that is mounted beneath a plane. And as the plane flies over an area, it's snapping photographs as it goes. And then essentially your site is covered by a whole series of these black and white or sometimes color photographs. Sorry. Standard photographs then can be corrected, and we can generate what I term ortho photographs, but they essentially give us a really beautiful picture of the ground at that particular point in time and can be a really, really useful tool when we're trying to evaluate an area. And they're often quite widely used because there's national, often coverage of data that can be used. And so we can take the data, we can interpret it, we can visualize it, we can take it into software, and we can generate some outputs. So in this slide in front of you, actually what you can see is the same location between 2003 going back to 1948. And so that is the power of our photographs in allowing us to look back in time really quite fast. So, and we can do analysis and look at things that have changed, how a site may have changed over time. The new technique obviously is the advent of satellites. So these are orbiting platforms that are acquiring imagery. And this slide here is a diagram showing the electromagnetic spectrum. And what it really shows is that, or what's important is the part that we do use are the visible part of the spectrum, which is shown in the middle, the infrared part, and the thermal infrared. So actually we use quite a narrow range, but we use that, and the satellites collect data and imagery at those particular wavelengths. So the power of imagery is that they collect data in these different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So one thing to think about with imagery is the quality of the imagery and what we term the resolution. So how detailed is the imagery, and what can we identify? So what I've produced here is some slides of the same area using different satellite imagery. So this is using ASTA, which is an American and Japanese satellite, but it has a resolution or ground surface distance of 30 meters. So each pixel is 30 by 30 meters. And you can see the image itself is quite blocky. What can you resolve from it? Not very much. It's a bit of a blocky image. It's not very detailed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to improve the resolution. I'm now going to go to 10 meters using the old SPOT satellite data, and we can see it's slightly better, but still quite blocky. What I'm going to do now is use some of the new data. So this here is QuickBird data, same site, but has a resolution of 0.6 meter. So basically each pixel is about half a meter in size. And this is quite old data now. We have even better quality data available, but we can see that once we do that, we get a much better picture of what the ground is looking like. And so the resolution is particularly important when we're using imagery, particularly for us when we're trying to map features that might be important for our structures or features that we're trying to investigate. So we've done some work in Asia, to Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, looking at slope stability and the impact of those problems on the road infrastructure. And we've used satellite data. We've used some new spot data, which has a resolution of 0.5 or half a meter. And we can begin to identify features, as you can see the image here. We've got some spot data, we've got Google Earth and big maps, and we can begin to identify different features. In this case, debris flows, which have come down channels and then have affected the road and blocked some of the rivers. Here again, we've used the same data for a variety of different problems. Here on the right, the top left, we've got a rock slide, we've got some mud flows and some translational failures. And so we're using imagery acquired from satellites to really tell us about the ground. And then we can then use that to understand what the impact on the road network will potentially be. And we can see those identified in those pink areas. There was a big failure in 2015, which destroyed a local village. And we can identify that by using imagery and Google Earth to look at the pre and post event to try to understand what the impact might be for future events. In the top, we can see before and after. And in the bottom, we can see some ground photos of the actual deposits taken from the neighboring road. Here's a big rock avalanche that occurred in early 2000, which caused some quite considerable damage, blocked the valley, destroyed the road. And if you look in the bottom photographs, you can see in the distance a small vehicle. so you can get an idea about the size of the blocks that came down from that rock avalanche. Really quite large. Most of them are much larger than the vehicles. They were very, very large deposits. And so we can understand the nature of them, the extent, and we can look at the hazard and the impact on the road infrastructure. So we're going to move from satellite optical data into elevation data. I think this type of data is very, very useful. And what is it? So basically, it's a data set that just shows you how the topography varies. It measures elevation. So in the example here, you can see you've got a topographic representation where every bit of the data just stores the height at that particular point. And when we do it for a large area, we get a representation of topography. We get hills and valleys. So it's a really, really useful tool for us, particularly when we can get good quality data. So again, if we go through resolution is important. Here in this image, we've got some 30-meter elevation data where every pixel is 30 by 30 meters. It stores elevation again. And these have been what we term hill shaded. What we've done is we've illuminated them to try to enhance the topography. Again, it doesn't really show very much, but as we move down the resolution, we can see that we have got 1 meter resolution data, and we got a much detailed map of the terrain, and we can begin to see features like valleys and coastlines and cliffs, treetops, and also some buildings and hedges. So the detail is much better. So for us, data at this kind of scale is much more useful because it provides a level of detail that we require for our purposes. So I don't know why that is. These lines appearing on my screen where we can't see them. Okay. So we typically, for us, when we're doing work as engineering geologists, we will be using what we term LiDAR. And LiDAR is elevation data acquired by a laser flown in a plane. And that laser is scanning vertically downwards. If you know the location of the plane using GPS, you can work out the location of the laser return point. And it gives you a very dense, detailed, very accurate model of the topographic surface. So in the UK, for example, we have a systematic LiDAR surveys taking place across the entire country, particularly for things like flooding, etc. But it's also useful for our purposes for mapping. Now, the reason it's useful is because LiDAR can help penetrate vegetation. And it's quite unique in the sense that it will pick up the top of the trees, but will also penetrate the canopy and also reflect off the ground. And for us in the UK, where we have quite a lot of tree cover and woods and forests, being able to map the ground below them is really powerful. And I'm going to show you some examples of where that can be employed. So this is a site here in France we did some work on called Synard, and there's a big landslide here moving that's affecting the road and some of the local villages. And what we can see here is that there's a lot of trees, but we can begin to see there's some evidence of some fresh ground and some fresh movement that's taken place, particularly in the top middle of the area. And that means there's some movement taking place, but most of the ground's covered by trees. So that's an issue for us. So here's a topographic map, an elevation model with the trees included. So we can see the ground, but we can see the speckled nature from the return from the top of the trees. So you can see the roughness from the tree canopy on the top. But you can see in some places, you can see some bare ground. So what we can also do, we can remove those trees from the imagery And then we can begin to see this. So by removing the trees from the elevation data, we can look at the bare ground. We call it a bare earth model because it's naked earth. And we can see the ground surface without anything on top. And that really does illuminate the site. We can see much more detail available to us. So it's a very, very powerful technique. So we've moved very much into using drones recently. Since about 2005, we do often acquire drone data now in the UK. So we have both. We have sort of multi-rotor drones. We also have fixed wing drones. We do fly both of those. They tend to have different advantages and disadvantages. So for a multi-rotor, it's very maneuverable. It's easy to launch. It's very good for small areas. It is somewhat heavy, but it is good for taking photographs downwards, but also maybe photographs horizontally as well, if you need to. So if you're surveying a cliff, for example, then having a helicopter is quite good for taking photographs of a vertical face. They're quite cheap. So I've got a drone here at home that cost me a few £100. So it's quite good. They're quite cheap. And they often come pre-installed with cameras, which can be quite good quality. But they tend to have quite low resolution GPS L1 only receivers, which tend to be okay, but not very, very precise. We've got a fixed wing drone. It's a big thing, which is kind of polystyrene. It's quite light, but it's really good for larger areas. It's aerodynamic, has a much longer flight time. The battery lasts longer. The payloads can vary, so we can, for example, attach different types of cameras. But also it's got L1, L2 receivers, which means that you can get much more precise location for your surveys. And in some cases, that's actually quite important. So why use a UAV rather than using satellite data? So I've shown you satellite data and I've shown you LiDAR, but actually the data that I've shown you is quite expensive to purchase. So it may be that for some studies, it's simply not cost effective to purchase the data. And in that case, flying a drone or UAV may be a much more cost effective solution for your study. And in the UK, many companies do long distance flights. So we're restricted to within 500 meters, but actually we have what's termed a visual line of sight. But some companies now have extended that to do much longer flight lines. So it is possible, but is a bit restrictive. So UAV is quite cheap, better resolution, as I'll show you, got phenomenally detailed models. The data is pretty instant. You get the data, process it. It may be no more than a couple of days old. So it's really, really good data. And also you're managing it, you're planning it. It all comes down to you. So as managing the project. Accuracy. I'm not going to spend too much on this, but I think it is important to consider the accuracy of your data. So what's termed internal and external accuracy. And that's quite an important consideration when you're talking about flying your drone data. It's often a question that's asked by clients and certainly by researchers, is termed what is the accuracy of your data. So drone data is typically acquired on standard photogrammetry principles, and it's a process whereby they join together all of the photographs you take, and you may take, for example, 500 individual photographs, and the processing will take those and bring those together. So there are issues regarding the quality of the camera, the resolution of it, but also in particular the GPS that's installed in the drone. So if you've got just an L1 receiver, then your accuracy may be a few meters. So if you're trying to do a very detailed survey, that may not be sufficient. If you are using one with just an L1 receiver, then often you'll need to add some ground control points, and these are points on the ground which you will then take GPS locations of, and you'll use that data to correct your final model to make it more precise to the ground. So if you have L1, L2, then that's kind of done for you. No ground control then would be required. So you only achieve really good survey accuracy. So that's very high precision with ground control points if you've only got that single receiver. But if you're getting both frequencies, L1, L2, and you're doing sort of a real-time correction and post-processing correction of your data, then that will give you much more precise location down to below a meter at least. So, and that is an important consideration. So in terms of the UK context, drone flying is very heavily regulated. I can't speak for other countries, but if I want to say from a UK perspective, you cannot just go to a site and throw a drone in the air and start collecting data. That is in fact illegal, and there are very serious repercussions if you're found to have done that. So first of all, you've got to be registered with the government as a drone pilot. You must have identification on your drone. So if it crashes and is found, it can be returned. You can't fly a drone more than 500 meters away from you, what we term visual line of sight, and it can't go more than about 100 meters high. So you've got a very, very small, very limited extent for your drone. You can't just fly the drone into the clouds, for example. That is illegal. You can't just do anything with the drone. In particular, if you are collecting imagery, which we often are, then there are restrictions about things like flying over people and flying near buildings and vehicles and vessels. There are strict regulations about flying your drone near these different installations, for example. And also, you must never fly near a restricted zone, so an airport. And in the UK, that also includes aerodromes, which are small local airports for small planes, not the big commercial airports we think of, but there are quite a few small local aerodromes which take the small little two-seater planes as well. So we need to be very careful. On a recent survey I did, we had to also liaise with the local paragliding society because they often paraglided along the coastline. And so we had to coordinate with them when we were flying the drone so that we didn't fly near to or into any of the paragliders as they flew past. So there's quite a lot of planning goes into droning. We simply don't ever just throw it in the air and start taking pictures. So in terms of the actual process, once we've done the pre-planning and we fly the drone takes lots of pictures, but there's quite a lot of post-processing taking place, which then converts that into a useful product. So the flight planning, a lot of flight planning takes place, and that involves using specialist software. We define the site. We have a landing and takeoff point. We have points at which the drone is going to take photographs, and that's pre-programmed, and then that is uploaded to the drone, and the drone then flies that predefined flight route. We got to take into consideration wind direction, the weather, and also surrounding issues like airports or other drone flyers or even paragliders. And so there's a lot of pre-planning takes place, so that by the time we get to site, it's planned. We've uploaded the plan to the drone. We launch the drone, and the drone will fly that pre-programmed route. We don't send a drone up and fly it manually. We tend to do it by a pre-programmed flight. Again, so fixed wings and multi-rotors, we do the same. We will pre-program the helicopter with a flight plan. It will go off and fly that flight plan, taking photographs as it does so. And so whichever platform that we use, pre-planning is always undertaken. So once we've flown the site, we need to take all the photographs off the camera, off the drone, and we've then got to process them. And firstly, the processing takes the GPS tags that are in the photographs. So every time a photograph is taken, the drone inserts a GPS location tag inside that photograph in what's termed the EXIF file tags inside. And that's used by the processing software to locate the photographs in space and to help to fit them together. It uses image matching to begin to stitch all these photographs together. And then it positions them in relation to the ground and then begins to tie them together, join them, and then from that generates what we term an orthomosaic, which is a combined photograph, but also generates points clouds from the photogrammetry which relate to the topography on the ground. So here are some examples. So on the left-hand side, we've got an orthomosaic. So that is a 400 photographs stitched together into one orthomosaic. So it's been combined. So it's just one large photograph. And these can be quite large. So these images can be several gigabytes in size once they're done. So they can often be quite large. But in tandem to that, it also generates an elevation surface. So you get an image, but you also get some measure of topography. On the left right-hand side, you can see a topographic model that's been illuminated to give that sense of topography. And so having both of those data sets, really, really powerful for us. So the example we're going to use here is of a site in the Isle of Wight here shown, which is just south of Portsmouth, a beautiful island tourist resort called the Isle of Wight. And we went to the southern tip. You can see study area there. And we went to look at an area which where we've got some active erosion taking place that's affecting some houses. And we did some drone surveys to look at mapping that feature. And it's called the Black Gang site, the Black Gang landslide. And we can see the extent of it south of the village of Chale. Inside that white box is the extent of our mapping area. So here's the area. We've got a whole series of houses identified. You can see there by Chair Cliff Terrace, which is those houses that have been affected by the movement. And we can see there's lots of active ongoing instability, which is affecting that site. So we did the drone survey. Here's a photograph of it looking along the coastline, and we can see we've got lots of very active erosion taking place. It's very dynamic. It's going back very quickly, and you can see it's really very active in terms of erosion. So in terms of outputs, the drone data gives you what's termed the point cloud of data, and we can see here this speckling is those point returns, the calculations of the point cloud about elevation, but also in relation to the mosaic. We get the mosaic image, so we get that color image mosaic together. We get an elevation model, which is that underlying topographic model. We can see here color coded according to height above sea level. And then typically we have a combined model, and we bring the two together into some sort of three-dimensional representation. Now, in terms of resolution, the resolution is really quite phenomenal. And this is really one power of it. Now, just to bear in mind that the imagery I showed you earlier was 30 meters. Yeah, not centimeters. And even the best data was 0.5 meters. So that's 50 centimeters. But the data here is of the order of 2 centimeters. So if we zoom in the imagery, we can actually see my colleague and myself, Paul and myself, flying the drone. And that is visible. You can see me stood there in my hat, and that's visible in the imagery because it's got such a high resolution. And that is fantastic. By far the best thing about drone data. So in terms of final comments for this presentation, I think it's for engineering geology, we use remote sensing all the time. It's a very powerful tool. It allows us to map an area, understand an area very quickly. It's very cost effective, particularly for areas maybe that are overseas or difficult to access. So I showed you some examples of imagery that are, below 1 meter, half a meter resolution, and those tend to be the best ones for our purposes. I've showed you some UAV or drone data. I've shown you how it can be acquired. It is time consuming. So the pre-planning, the flying the drone, the post-processing can be time consuming. So in a recent drone survey we did last week, we took 500 photographs, and the processing took in the region of 19 hours. So the post-processing can take quite a long time as well. So, it's not there is some time consumption involved in that. So that does require you to do that. So the resolution though is quite fantastic. 2.5 centimeter data is really amazing. So despite that, I still use our photographs because they are cheap. They go back a long way, and they're a really good tool with a really good long archive. So, so I use all three: air photographs, imagery, drone data. All of them have their place. So I'm going to finish a photograph myself from my PhD student Pat. Here's us in Tajikistan on the border with Afghanistan. A beautiful sunny day. It's a bit windy. Explains why my hair is up, but I now will invite you to ask any questions.
Brilliant, Malcolm. Thanks very much. It's a lovely photo, actually.
It is, yeah.
Fantastic.
We had a great time, fantastic, beautiful time. We are on the border between Tajikistan and Afghanistan. So in the background are the Pamir Mountains in Afghanistan. So it was absolutely amazing. If you're a geologist, it was absolutely fantastic. So sorry, that's just me.
No, not at all, not at all. I think that's a really useful presentation, and great to see some of the local shots as well, particularly Isle of Wight and Black Gang Chine there, and beautiful stretches of beach, although obviously with bit of erosion happening there. So and to hear about the legal side of the drones and how you use them, and so I hope for those who have a background in geomorphology or more interested in this remote sensing, then that's conjured up some questions that you might want to ask Dr. Whitworth, and please do take a drink. My coughing also reminded me to, if you need to go and get a glass of water there for yourself, you did well to continue talking. Though the dry throat, sometimes that does happen. Yeah. So you've had a really good overview of the city of Portsmouth, the University of Portsmouth. You've heard from Dr. Whitworth, a reader in geomorphology as well. I just wanted to share just the slide on the scholarships in particular within the school where Malcolm, so you should be able to see. There we go. So you should be able to see that slide there, everyone. So these are the postgraduate programs that we offer, which Dr. Whitworth is very much involved in, and also the scholarships that are available to you from Nigeria. So should there be interest there. So are there any questions at all from you, either the YouTube or on this Zoom? I know there's 2 channels going off, and SAR UK did a quick introduction at the beginning, but very quick. But SAR UK, who you've heard about this webinar, is one of our representatives in Nigeria. And so they can help you with applications, or if you do have any in-country questions, then you can very much go to SAR UK, who work closely with both us in Portsmouth, but also Chinelo, who's based in the Lagos office for the University of Portsmouth. So if you do have any questions, just put them in the chat box, that might be easier than unmuting. So do you have any questions there at all on the subject area or careers in this area? Very much with remote sensing or these particular areas, they are a shortage subject, I believe, Dr. Whitworth. They are a shortage career occupation in the UK. They still remain that way. So should you stay here? Is that right? So if you take one of these programs, for example, in the UK, and you can take advantage of the GIR, the graduate immigration route, then you will probably have a good chance of applying for one of these. If you can just mute yourself, Abdul Karim, if you can just mute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in terms, I've been given these.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Malcolm, and hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was quite helpful. Yes, we have a couple of questions here. If it's okay, I'll just go through the questions. We have some questions on YouTube too. Yes, so the first question here is from Abdul Karim Yaya, and it's a question related to if you have online MSc cybersecurity and forensics available, and do you have scholarships for any online course?
Online, you would have to go to the website. I mean, this is a very specific webinar for the School of the Environment, Geography and Geosciences, of those programs that we just outlined there. But yes, certainly there is cybersecurity. That would be in the Faculty of Technology. But SAR UK can help you with that one, if that's okay, in terms of making an application or looking online for that. But the scholarships available that I'm aware of are on-campus ones, full-time only, okay? But do have a look at the web pages or do consult SAR UK.
All right, thank you very much, Catherine. So the next question is from Osemwanta, and she would like to know how would this presentation, how will this old concept help in the area of current security challenge? And then also she wants to keep further trainings related to subject areas like this.
How does this area develop with the current security challenges? Security in what way? Does that make sense to you, Malcolm? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, I'm assuming maybe like a country like Nigeria. She's probably maybe related to Nigeria.
Okay, I'm not really sure about security, but remote sensing has many applications. So mine is really focused on its application to understand the geology or the surface geomorphology and how that can help us with understanding how that might impact on construction. So in terms of security, I'm not really very sure. It is used quite widely. Obviously, you've got a good image of the ground you can use for a variety of things, and I'm sure security is one of them. But I'm not sure that I'm able to answer that because I'm not an expert in that field. I'm sorry I can't help you, but
no, that's absolutely fine. So, okay.
And the second question was something about there was a second part to the question.
Could you repeat the question, Sayuke? Or maybe we've answered it.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Bimbo. I think there's some network
Hello.
problem.
Hi, Dr. Malcolm. Sorry, I think I had a bit of internet. Hello?
Yeah, don't worry. I can hear you now.
Hi, sorry. I think my internet is fluctuating a bit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
fine.
fluctuating.
Can you hear me now?
Fine.
Yeah, go for it.
Hello. Okay, my internet is unstable. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bimbo, we can hear you now. Hello, Bimbo. Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, I think her internet is not stable. So let me take the question. Yeah, the other question is, are there no scholarships for high school graduates?
Yeah, very much so. There are scholarships. Let me go back on the slide. So there are academic scholarships, merit scholarships, absolutely available. So let me just take you back a few slides. Which slide was it? Here we go. So this slide here gives you all the scholarships that are available for the first year of study. So you've seen the ones for the specific School of the Environment, Geography and Geosciences, for the MSc programs, Engineering Geology. These are in addition as well. So undergraduate or postgraduate, you can apply from Nigeria. And these, you can see there are 3 different types there. Obviously, the alumni scholarship is if you've already studied at the University of Portsmouth. So for those who come for undergraduate, then you might want to stay on for your postgraduate program, in which case you would get that 20% fee discount. So does that explain things to you? Hopefully that will answer the questions. And I can put the link as well in the chat box.
Thank you, Catherine. The next question. Good afternoon, class. Good afternoon, class. My name is Prosper from Nigeria. I just graduated from Polytechnic with the degree of Higher National Diploma, HND, in Surveying and Geoinformatics. And I still want to furthermore, please, how do I go about it?
Could they do a top up, Catherine, in technology?
They have
Can I please come in?
Yes, please, Janelle.
Hi, Joy.
Hi. Okay, so for the student who's done an HND and is looking to progress to the university, we can accept them for certain courses for what through what we call credit entry. So it would be nice for them to have a look at our School of Computing courses. They have some courses relating to information technology and the likes. And then when they do put in an application, the admissions tutor will make a decision as to whether they will be accepted onto year 2 or year 3, depending on what their overall grades and transcripts are showing. So that's the best way they can progress, because unfortunately, we cannot accept HNDs onto a full master's program.
No. I would say surveying and geoinformatics is actually part of civil engineering. So I I would say that if they
Oh,
want
I thought I had information technology. Sorry.
no, it's
Yeah,
HND in
okay.
surveying. So yeah, so I think if they in technology
okay,
faculty,
if that's the case, then it will be within the School of Engineering and civil engineering, like you mentioned. So once they provide their documents, their transcripts, their degree certificates, the admissions tutor can then make a decision as to the best level of entry they can offer them.
Yeah. And also to add to that, a question for you, Malcolm, in terms of admissions onto the MSc Engineering Geology programs, for example, if there was a HND applicant, professional experience as well, so they've been working perhaps in a relevant job role for more than 3 years or perhaps 2 years, would that be a consideration, a HND plus professional experience?
Possibly. We have done it. We would probably ask them to, depends on level of experience, but we do look at every application separately. So if there's HND with lots of work experience, then we will consider them, yes. Or we may come back and give them some advice about how they might top up, for example. So we would certainly communicate with the student.
Brilliant. So if you are interested and you do have a HND, but lots of relevant work experience, then still try to put your application in, but detail that work experience in your personal statement, and perhaps provide that reference as well from your employer just to back you up in terms of your role responsibilities and things like that. So yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Next question. Is it possible to get a direct master's into any of the geoscience courses with a third class grade from the undergraduate? And what are the scholarship options if there are possibilities?
Yeah, if you do have a third class degree, it is still possible to come into an MSc program. What you would need to do though is take a pre-master's program with our partner college, International College Portsmouth, and I'll put that link into the chat box. So ICP, we call them, International College Portsmouth. They're based within the University of Portsmouth buildings. They provide a 3-month program that will run into our October MSc. So normally you would start in June, the pre-master's program, and then complete that over the summer, and then in October come on to us if you successfully progress. So yes, a third class is possible with the pre-masters. Would you take a third class with professional work experience? I don't think so, but what are your thoughts?
Can I come in? Can I come in? I do remember that for last year's intake, we did have a student who had a third. I think I copied you in the mail, Catherine, and it turned out that the student had a decent number of years of work experience, relevant work experience, and they were eventually accepted onto the course. I can't remember now if it was geology or environmental contamination, but it was definitely a course within the School of Earth, Geosciences and Geology and Geography. So if we've got a student with a third and they have, I think it was 5 years or more relevant work experience, I think they will be considered. I mean, I'm speaking from the knowledge of that student who eventually progressed. But if you are a fresh, if you're a fresh undergraduate without work experience and you're looking to come in for a master's with a third class degree, you will have to go through the pre-master's route, like Catherine has explained earlier.
I would say that when you do apply, you need to, if it's the case, you've got a third, you've got some work experience, you need to make in your application quite clear what that work experience has been and what skills you've gained. So, and also, as Catherine said, need to have a reference from your employer to support your work, your period of time at work. So with Gina's right, we do take students with thirds if they've got a work experience, and what I would say is that the ICP route, the students that come from that do go on to do very well. So it is a nice route. I do like students that come from ICP because they have got a good good grounding, and they come on to do very well. So,
So yeah, I mean, normally you would apply. If we're a bit unsure, we'd ask for more information. And if it's a definite no, we refer to ICP anyway, International College Portsmouth. So if we can't accept, then there is that backup for you. Yeah, I'll just find the link. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
I've got to go to another meeting.
Yeah, should I move towards the next question? Okay.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. If there's anything specific subject-wise,
yes.
Malcolm does have to go.
Yes. Okay. So I'm taking up questions from YouTube now. The first question, is there any prerequisite of work if I do not have relevant background in science or my borderline grades?
If you don't have a background, yeah, so again, going back to how we said, if you present your application, we can consider it. But if you don't have any background in engineering, geology, or relevant degree or relevant professional experience, then no, they are not conversion programs. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not conversion programs. So you do have to have professional experience or at least a relevant degree.
The degrees, the prerequisites are stipulated on the website. So, for example, engineering geology, you must have done geology or civil engineering. Or in some cases, we've had students who've done, for example, geography, but then worked in geosciences for a few years. So that is then acceptable. Environmental geology, for example, chemistry, geography, environmental science. It's got a slightly broader entry requirements. And the hazards course, again, is quite broad. So I think, as Catherine said, the best thing to do is look at the entry requirements, make your application, and then we will come back with some advice or we'll contact you with asking for more information. So I think the thing is, don't be afraid to, if you're not sure, make an application or email us and ask us, and we can have or email Catherine and the team, and they can and we can hopefully give you some advice.
Brilliant.
Okay. So I've got to go to another meeting now.
Yes, no, thank you very much for joining us. All right,
I do apologise.
No problem. Please, that's all right. Yeah. Both Chanella and I will remain on. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Thank you. So yeah, so if there's any other general questions.
We have 5 more questions.
Okay.
So yeah. So the other question is, any scholarship available for engineering geology? If yes, please mention the criteria.
Yeah, so in the slide I showed there, and I think these slides will be going out, or you can replay on the webinar. So these ones are, let me see if I can, okay. So you should be able to see on that, on the screen there, the scholarships for the MSc programs in geosciences. They're in the School of Environment, Geography and Geoscience. So the deadline for your application is the 4th of July, 2021. And you could get that 50% off your program. The programs are listed in front of you there on the slide. If you're from Nigeria, brilliant. That is one part of being eligible to apply. But very much you need a 2-1, so a first or an upper second from your bachelor degree, alongside the application form, which is on the website. So there's a link actually in this in these slides. There's a link there that you can just click on, and it will take you to our web pages, and I'll put it in the chat box as well. So a first or an upper second, along with the application form, and being a nationality of Nigeria, Ghana, Bangladesh, India, or Pakistan, then you can apply for this scholarship for the 2021. You must send it in, so you must have applied for one of these programs, and you must have got your offer before the 4th of July 2021. Okay.
Thanks, Catherine. One question, is there no scholarship option for students with 3rd class grade? I ask again.
No.
No. Okay, thank you, Catherine. The other
Although,
question is, yeah,
although
yeah,
saying
please.
that, I think Chinelo, if you're from a certain nationality, so Nigeria, you can get, I think, going back to those slides, automatic scholarship for if you are from Nigeria. So going back to those original scholarships, the Global Development Scholarship is available for any applicant with an offer of £1,600 for 2021 entry. And if you are from Nigeria, Ghana, then yes, you are eligible. It doesn't matter about your score, your GPA score. If you have an offer, it's automatically taken off your tuition fee. And that's the Vice Chancellor's Global Development Scholarship.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there fully funded scholarships for Nigerians?
Fully funded 100%? No, sorry.
Okay, so next question is, Catherine. Can you please tell me more about post-study work visa, and if this applies for students coming from Nigeria? They're asking about the post-study work visa.
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably best that Chinelo rattles this off very well because she probably does it every single day. Is that better for you, Chinelo, to deliver that one so it's accurate?
Okay, so the post-study work visa would happen after you have obtained your admission and you have been issued a visa to study. So I think the key thing really is to get a visa to study in the first place. So once you have been made an offer of admission and you have fulfilled the conditions on your offer has been made unconditional, your card has been issued, and you have successfully applied for your visa for study, it is only when you are now a student and fulfill all the conditions for a post-study work visa that you will be eligible. So I think further information on that should be given to you by your agent, because they usually have information on how to successfully apply for a visa in the first place. So my advice will be get your visa for study, and then whilst you're in school and on the verge of rounding up your course, you can then apply for the post-study work visa. It's not a visa you can apply for until you're already a student and you're rounding up your program.
Thank you. The next question. Hello, is University of Portsmouth assisting students with getting internship during the course?
Well, it depends on the course. If it's an undergraduate course, at least 95% of our undergraduate courses have got work placements incorporated in the undergraduate program. So, for example, if you are doing an undergraduate degree course that essentially should be running for 3 years, and you have indicated interest in the work placement option of that course, then yes, we will be happy to assist you through our careers and employability team to ensure that you get work placement between your year 2 and your year 3. Now that's that for undergraduate. For postgraduate, we have very limited courses that have got work placement incorporated in them. But for the few ones that do, we'll be happy to assist you to get work placement jobs for that duration. If you are a student, and because you are an international student, you are eligible to work for 20 hours a week part-time. During that period, the careers and employability team would also be happy to assist you with obtaining those part-time jobs that allow you work for that duration per week.
Thank you. The second last question. Do you have January intake? Can I defer September application to January?
Yeah, there are a number of programs that are open in January, and we'll put a link in the chat box there. So it very much depends on what you're applying for. For the School of the Environment, Geography and Geosciences, sadly not at this time. They're October starts only for those MSc programs, but there are other programs which are on offer in January. So looking at the business programs, technology, engineering, And we do offer biotechnology and sports management within my faculty of science and health, but we can put a link there of all the January intake programs for you.
Thank you, Catherine. The last question for today's seminar is, what IELTS score I need for an undergraduate course?
What? I didn't get that.
What IELTS score I need for an undergraduate course? IELTS score.
Oh, IELTS. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So for an undergraduate program, I'm assuming the person asking the question would have probably completed their high school. And so if they have gone ahead to write either the WAEC or the NECO and have achieved the C grade or higher in English language, they will not need to write the IELTS. So we will be happy to waive the English language test requirement once they are able to provide us with their WAEC results and we're able to verify those results with the scratch cards available. But for students who have not been able to achieve this grade, we would want an IELTS score of 5.5 with a minimum of 5.5 across all the bands.
Thank you. Now we are moving towards the end of the seminar. Anything else you want to put towards put forward for the students in the end?
No, I think very much. We've put quite a few links there in the chat box, so please do open those up and save them as favorites if you do want to return back to your web pages and just have a read through. So the web links in the chat box are about the scholarships, both for the University of Portsmouth generally for undergrad and postgraduate, but also for the School of Environment, Geography and Geosciences for those MSc programs. I've put in there the link for the January intakes across the University of Portsmouth also, so do have a look at those. And I've put a link to the pre-masters programs for ICP, so International College Portsmouth. Should you not be able to get direct entry to the University of Portsmouth, then there are those fallback options. The same if you get undergraduate, if you're just doing your WIAC at the moment, then ICP offer the foundation route in. So it's not just about the pre-masters, it is also about the foundation route in. But your first port of call, if you do have further questions, would be SCI UK, our representative in Nigeria, but also Chinelo, who runs the Lagos office in Nigeria. And I showed you the slides with our contact details. And so, very much the global office is there and does help. So I'm hoping that the presentation today was very useful for you from Dr. Whitworth about the remote sensing. That gives you an insight into how that area is operating. So so that's all from me. Just thank you very much for your time and thank you very much for joining us. I'm aware that we've run over, but that's because you're all interested. So that's great. Anything else from you, Chinelo?
No. other than a big thank you to everyone for staying on and listening in. I know how difficult it is with the internet situation, so it's always a good thing to have events like this and actually see people logging on and staying on for as long as possible. So thank you very much. If you've got any questions, like Catherine said, SCI UK will be the best blog for you to apply so that your application can be treated fairly quickly, since it will be coming through to the global office, which is where I work. If you've got any queries about the university in general, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you again from all of us at the University of Portsmouth.
Thanks, Chinelo. Thank you, SCI UK.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your valuable time, everyone. So we are ending this seminar here now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.